This is the personal assistant agent that I use to handle and manage my entire calendar. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get this up and running in N8N in under 20 minutes. As you can see here, the functionalities are pretty simple, but this is what I would typically use on a day-to-day basis. So we have a create event and find email node. In the find email node, we have a database with our contacts and email addresses. We also have a get event, which gets the meeting specifics, and a get calendar, which gets the total availability. Lastly, we have a delete event and an update event. In the past, you actually needed to create these tools in a separate workflow and then call them manually. But now, after the new update, you can do this all within one workflow, which makes it a lot easier. So let's first start with a demo. When something like this is production ready, you typically want to have another node here, like a WhatsApp or Telegram, so you can text your agent on your phone. But for this example, I'm just going to do the chat within this workflow. So let's first start with a simple example. Let's say create an event for today at 12 p.m. with Edward. Call this meeting workout. So I'll get into more of the details later in the video, but basically there are 4 parameters that our agent is looking for when creating an event. So they want the time of the event, the date of the event, the name of the meeting, and then the person to invite. If we don't give them an end time, they're going to assume that the meeting is going to be 30 minutes long. So let's do this here. So because I didn't give it an actual email address, it's going to first check this find email contact base, find an Edward, and then get that meeting. So you can see here, meeting was created for 12 p.m. today. Now let's say you don't want to type this all out into one sentence. We can also do that. So create a meeting today for me at 2 p.m. So I'm missing a lot of the other parameters. So it's going to say in order to create the meeting, I need to title the meeting, list of attendees. Could you please provide those? So sure, I'll say meeting is called business and invite Edward. Okay, awesome. So now it was created also to give you the meeting link over here. Let's do one more example and I'll show you what it looks like when you have or invite someone who's not on your contact base. Let's say you're working with a client. So create another meeting today at 4 p.m. Let's say for an hour. Call this meeting accounting and invite, I don't think there's a Christine in our database. So it should ask, what is Christine's email address? So let's put a dummy email address at hi. There you go. So now a hour-long meeting for Christine, which we just provided the email address for, was created. So now let's go through an example of the get event and get calendar. Let's say in the morning you want to see your availability for today. You want to see what's on your schedule. So I'm going to tell the agent, what's my schedule today? So it's telling me here are your booked slots for today. Typically this get calendar node is not going to get you the actual specific details of your meetings or your events, which is why we pair it with a get event node, which can get the specific details. Here are your book slots. So let's ask it. So that's the get calendar node. Let's get into the other one. What is my first meeting? So if I do this, it should pull all the relevant details. Who is invited? What's the name? So it's called Workout with Edward. Here's the meeting link. It's scheduled from 12 to 12:30. Perfect. Let's do one more. What is my second, third meeting? The reason why this get event node is so important is that it's not coming out here in the actual interface, but it is retrieving the meeting ID. And that's going to be important if we ever want to delete an event or we want to update it. So third meeting today is with Christine. This is one we just created called accounting. Okay, lastly, let's do this delete event and update event nodes. So let me start by saying, what is my second meeting today? So we're going to first get the actual meeting details and say, remove this meeting. And it's going to delete it. Okay. I'm not sure why. So it did work successfully. Let me see why there was an error. Let's see if we go into executions here. Yeah, it looks like everything is fine. Maybe a parameter that they wanted was not. So they only need the event ID. So yeah, I think let's try it again and let's see if there's another issue. Delete my first meeting today. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think I don't think it was an issue. Okay, so now that we got rid of these two, let's add it back. Create another meeting today at 12 p.m. for an hour with John. I think John is another person that's in the database. Okay, John is not there. John at... Okay, perfect. Now the final node is update an event. So let's say change the first meeting to meeting with John and Edward, and also invite Edward. Awesome. So now it's keeping the John email that was already there. It's adding Edward, and then everything else is the same. Oh, and the title has changed as well. Let's say you just want to change the title. Change the title of this meeting to hello. Okay, so now we can change the name of the meeting and keep everything else the same. Okay, so now that we went through the demo, let me go into each individual node, break it down, and show you how it's built. So if you've never built a agent before in N8N, you'll have basically a trigger node. You'll have a bunch of different options for what the trigger will be, but for our case, we're clicking when chat message is received. It's pretty intuitive. Next, we want to do is we add a node here and then add an AI agent. So for example, if I did another one, it would be advanced AI agent here. And then you can see this is pretty much the bare bones of what you would need. So let's delete this and I'll show you what this would actually look like. So you want to select tools agent, connect to the chat trigger node, which is the previous node. Now this JSON chat input is basically saying this is the message that I sent to the bot. So if you wanted to map this, you could just grab this chat input and then map it in here. Okay, next is a systems message for the bot. And basically this is what you're prompting the AI agent. You're telling it what it's supposed to do, what the tasks are, and any other details that you want the agent to know. So you can copy this, but this is what I put in. You are a calendar agent capable of the following tasks. And then I listed all the tasks that it can do. Now, for some of them, I specified the instructions, right? So for tool 1, creating an event, I always wanted to check the database first to see if we have the name and email address. So that's what I'm specifying here. Typo. Sorry, that was bothering me. For the second tool, it's pretty straightforward, so I didn't add any additional instructions. For tool 3, I just wanted to specify whether it's booked or available slots. And then tool 4, getting an event. I wanted to output it in a specific format, as you guys saw before. Delete event, always using the get event tool first to get the event ID. And then lastly, this is honestly unnecessary, but I found that sometimes when I said change an event, it wouldn't really know what to do. So I'm specifying right here to change an event, or to call this tool when I'm changing an event. And then lastly, you want to give it a time, or you want to tell the agent what time it is and what today's date is. So it's just a simple JavaScript expression here. So now that we have the basics for the AI agent, we are going to give it or connect it to a large language model so that we can actually have these conversations. So if this is your first time setting this up, it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of good documentation in N8N on how to connect your credentials. So I'm not going to go into actual details of how to do that. But basically, I'm giving it a GPT-4o model to use, connecting it to my API key, and that's it. Next, I want to give it a window buffer memory, meaning that the agent will know from our previous conversation, or like 5 messages above, what I'm talking about. So the context window length is going to be 5. Session key from the previous node. This is the session ID here, and that's it. Next, let's get into the actual fun stuff. So let's first start by doing a database. In your Find Email node, you want to connect it to any database. I'm using Google Sheets because it's pretty straightforward. Same thing, if you're connecting this to a Google Sheets API, they use OAuth too. It's pretty straightforward. They have a lot of good documentation on it. So I'm going to skip this. The tool's description is going to be set manually. And then I'm basically telling what this tool is for. So call this tool to find a contact's email address. You'll be given the from AI name, and your job is to return the email address. If you cannot find the name of the database, say, I don't know, nothing else. The one important thing that you're going to notice is this expression right here, from AI name. So N8N, I believe, came out with this recently, and it's very, very useful. So what we're saying with this expression is that I'm telling the agent to look for a name, which is going to be used as the main variable or the main parameter. So it'll make more sense as you continue to see more examples of it. But the resource is going to be sheet within document, get row, contact database, sheet 1, and this is what the actual database looks like. So this is the database. It's very straightforward, just name and email address. And so if you have an internal team that you work constantly with and set up meetings a lot with, then you can just fill them in here. So the next step is looking at the create event node. So this is the prompt that I'm giving this tool. Call this tool to create an event in your calendar. The parameters you need are the following. If any of these parameters are missing, go back and ask the user for the missing data. So like I said, these are the 4 things that we're looking for. And I'm also specifying that if there is no end time, I want you to assume start plus 30 minutes as the end time. And then always include the meeting link in the final message. So the resource, we're doing event, create. So these are all the basically actions that you can use using the Google Calendar API. Now we just need to access our calendar. Now we're going to be using these variables again for the start and end time. So basically we're telling the agent with this expression to find a start and end time from the message that we are sending in. Now this expression is exactly the same as this and everything else that we've had. The only difference is, similar to an Excel formula, you can actually add additional information, with a comma. So for example, we have the key in the beginning and then comma, a description of what we want. It's like a mini prompt for this agent to help recognize what they want for this variable. So in this case, I'm saying from AI, attendees is the key. And then if there are no attendees, then remove this field from the input. So the reason we have this is, let's say you want to create an event just for yourself. You want to block out some time in your calendar. You don't want to invite anyone. Then this is why we're adding that extra step. And lastly is the summary. So let's move on to the get availability and the get event. So let's start with the get calendar. Set manually. This is the expression that I'm using. Quite simple. Calendar availability, which is the operation. Connect to your calendar, and then I'm calling it a different, basically variable name. So start range and range. So if you remember in our example, I said, what is our schedule today? And so the agent is recognizing the start date is going to be probably 12 a.m. and the end range is going to be 11:59 p.m. And then you can also specify if you want to get the book slots or your available slots, and then your time zone. Now the get event, we're going to set manually again. Call this tool to get specific events. Event get many for the operation. Limit is whatever you want. I'm setting it at 50. And then these are the same JavaScript expressions, except now I'm adding a little bit more additional details. So the start is the beginning of the request. And then the end is going to be the end of the request. Meaning that, let's say, I'm going to say, get me, in the example, I said, what is my first meeting? And it does use this tool. But let's say I said, what are my meetings from 9 a.m. to noon? This is when adding that additional information in this expression is going to be useful. Okay, we're almost done. Delete event. Everything is the same. This is, I have it set as fixed, but it's because I'm not using any JavaScript. Call this tool to delete an event. Always use the get event tool first to get the event ID. Reaches event, delete. And for the event ID, we're gonna, same JavaScript expression. And then the additional information we're adding is use the get event tool to get this information. So it's pretty redundant, but I just want to make sure that it's always going to be calling that other get event tool before looking at this delete event node. Okay, for the final step, this is the update event. This is the prompt we're giving it. Call this tool to update an event. First, call the get event tool first to get the event ID, same as the delete event. Then call the find email tool to find the respective email address from the database. If the email address is not in the database, then go back and ask for the email address. So this is similar to what we had for the create event node. If additional attendees or new title is not mentioned, go back and ask the user for that data. Now the operation is going to be update. This one's pretty straightforward. It's getting this event ID from obviously the other node. And then you want to add these additional fields. So attendees, add these attendees below. So it's recognizing the email addresses that we want to add to our meeting. And then lastly is a summary, meaning that the title of the email, new event name or title. So creating something like this in the past was a much bigger pain in the ass, right? We had to essentially create each tool and then call them manually. But now, as you can see, it's very, very simple, and it's super awesome that they had this update. So it's pretty much out of the box. You just need to connect it, add those prompts like I showed you in the video, and then it'll be up and running. Just remember that if you want to connect it to, let's say, a Telegram node, you would do that. Or let's say WhatsApp. You would do that in here, so that you can actually just text your agent. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know in the comments if there are any questions you have, any issues you're having, or if there's anything else in your business that you either want to automate or create an AI agent for.